Hey, how's it going? Saturday Night Live, week 10 upon us. Michael McQuaid, Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to everybody watching as well. Just before we start off, two things. First off, if you want to comment, get your comment on the screen, please do. YouTube is your best shot. Search Irish NFL Show. It's on Twitter. And secondly, good to have everybody back live here. The one time that we did a pre-recorded show, nothing happened, thank God, in the NFL. Colin, we'll start with you. Welcome in, man.
How's it going? Yeah, look, every week we say, what a week, and every week the NFL delivers because there is always something happening. I mean, it was only this evening, obviously, more news around the Rams, which we're going to get to. But I think an interesting suite of games as well this week. So plenty to discuss this evening.
Brian, how's it form?
All good, all good. Great to be back with you guys again. There's Fred, as usual. Play Fred. I wouldn't say week 10 started with a bang, but it certainly started with a shock, and we've had a number of Dolphins fans, react to a great result for them by obviously poking holes in their picks on Thursday night, which, in fairness, they're right to because we all gave them very little chance in the game. But that was based on what we've seen up to now, 9 weeks of inconsistency and poor play offensively and defensively. But they came out and put a performance up on Thursday night, and that Ravens team on Thursday looked the shadow of the team that we've seen throughout the season. And we discussed on the show Thursday how effective Lamar's been, putting up average of 30-odd points, and even last week's comeback against the Vikings. But he looked a shadow of himself on Thursday night, and for Dolphins fans who've had very little to shout about this season, it was nice for them to get a result and they can rest up and take a week off.
Shout out to all the Dolphins fans. We'll talk about that game in 2 seconds, boys. I'm just buzzing about the rugby. I am. I know it's not the Irish rugby show, but delighted. Brings us all together. We're all delighted. Hopefully we can get an NFL game at the Aviva someday. But Colin, yeah, Thursday Night Football, we all picked the Ravens. I actually said the game could be over in the first quarter, so I'd like to apologize. I'd like to apologize to all Dolphins fans on behalf of not only me, but just also the whole show. I woke up on Friday morning and just laughed. At this point, Colin, I have to laugh.
Well, I mean, you have to make a pick, and at times it can be a toss of a coin. And the Lindsay Jones's 5-year-old actually had a better record than any of us last weekend, and in most of the experts. So the result a lot of the time can be a coin toss, but for this game, we had talked, I suppose, about some of the issues with the Ravens secondary. We didn't think the Dolphins would be good enough to take advantage of it. And the Dolphins defense had been so disappointing. Brian and I had been bigging them up in our preseason show. We thought that they were playoff bound, but boy, did they show up on Thursday. And kudos to them for a brilliant performance. And kudos to Brian Flowers. I mean, this is the creativity that we kind of expected from a Flowers defense. They showed cover zero 40 times pre-snap. It's unprecedented. They pressured Lamar all night long. You could see his frustration. I lost count of the number of times that I saw him smack the ground. And just they were brilliant across the board, but particularly on those third downs. They just harried and harassed them, and they took advantage of the opportunities that came their way. So you'd have to say a really great performance. When you look at the Dolphins' kind of next 5 games, they're winnable, certainly. So it'll be interesting to see what they finish with. If Flores is to keep his job, I think the playoffs are realistically out of reach, but he needs a serious second half of the season if he is to have a job next year.
What do you think, Brian?
I would say kudos as well to Tua, because he clearly wasn't fit. He came in and did a job in a game where you're not expected to come in and play. Came in, and the last drive in which he actually ran in the touchdown. That was a moment in the game. I haven't seen the Ravens just go in with the Mark Andrews touchdown, and there was still a bit of time on the clock that if they had held him up, but I think the Ravens, went a bit missing on the outside, but on the perimeter. But in fairness, he made the play, and Tua, you could see clearly he wasn't fit, but he did enough. And interesting enough, on Friday, I looked at a number of these. Not podcasts, such, but fan page of the Dolphins. There's a lot of videos from the stadium itself and the reaction to Tua when he came into the game. So there's a lot of talk in the media, around Tua potentially moving on from the Dolphins. I think it was quite clear in the game that the Dolphins fans are, as Colin cracks open a can, wants me to celebrate the Dolphins win. It was very clear in the stadium that the Dolphin fans are behind to it, and that was nice to see because he's had a tough year in and out, and scrutiny. But he seems to be getting his head down and getting on, despite all the speculation that he's going to get moved on in the next off season. So a big win for them and for the Ravens. It kind of leaves them in a bit of a situation because we touched on, even discussing this game on Thursday, we discussed on how competitive the division is, between the Browns, the Bengals, and who am I leaving out? The Steelers. I nearly forgot.
Steelers.
The Steelers that we
the
gave
Steelers.
no hope to. And the Steelers win tomorrow, and lo and behold, they're top of the division. It's a bizarre division, but it's a very competitive. You could say it probably is the most competitive one right now, with the exception maybe of the AFC West.
Love the can opening column just to celebrate. I know you're a big Miami fan. Dar McGuire commented saying cans open.
No mute on columns and the things.
just celebrating the re-emergence of this Dolphins defense.
Absolutely, and there's loads of comments. I want to thank 75 people watching on Twitter right now. You can comment in your best bets YouTube to get it read out properly on screen. But Patriots feeder, welcome into the show. We did beat New Zealand. What a weekend. And let's talk about Arizona, says Dart. We will at some point. Irish NFL show presented by Trust Gaming, presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. This was a moment of the season so far for me. Dear God.
I thought that was Waddy when I saw that on Friday morning.
Well, I can tell you now, Waddy's going to love this, lads. It's on. Is it on? Is it happening? Let's say.
I'll have to send that to him. I don't think he's around tonight. He's off celebrating the win.
For anyone listening on the podcast, that is Tua lifting the Lombardi Trophy in LA in February. Who knows? Thank you for the comment as well, Phil85. Appreciate the feedback from everybody. Appreciate everybody listening.
Michael, Michael, sorry, I don't mean to cut across. If that was to come to pass, you'd probably be the cleverest man in this country, Michael Martin might be giving you a shout to help him out.
I might get a year's supply of my Waddy from Mr. Waddy himself. Who knows? Right, before we go to talk about unreal city games, first off, obviously Mark's not here. I have got Mark's picks, so hi Mark, I know you're watching. Feel better soon. I'm still not fully recovered. I have to apologize publicly to the Donegal Dairy Vipers for not being a Letterkenny tonight. I hope you have a good night, lads. I'm sure you're all watching the show now instead of actually having a few pints. But Thursday night, Ronaldo's in the Aviva, the Cracks 90 column, and then boom, 20 minutes to go. A boy runs onto the field in the Aviva. 5 minutes later, Odell's going to LA. 24 hours after that, it looks as if Robert Woods is out for the season. Have I got that correct? The same day he came in, or that's just crazy couple of days for LA?
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose talk about having a ready-made replacement when OBJ signed, it was the wondering, it's like low risk, not no risk, because there'll always be when I think back to Asprilla signing with Newcastle and the way it derailed things there, but they didn't have to give anything up. They weren't paying him a whole lot of money. If he was to destabilize anything, they always could have cut him. But now, with Woods going out, he offers them such a threat. So it worked out for the Rams, you would have to say. I think it was an interesting that initially, I suppose the interest didn't happen as quickly as maybe some of us thought it might. And then he signed. He didn't sign. He's on the fence. He wanted to. The way in which it all leaked out over the last kind of 50 minutes before he actually signed was interesting. And obviously the stories have come out since. He was FaceTime with Jalen Ramsey, and Ramsey takes him into the wide receiver room and all that sort of stuff. So certainly for the Rams, another sign of just how intent they are on trying to go all the way and win the Lombardi. Kroenke obviously wants to win that in his home stadium.
I saw a very good line this evening, which was Odell Beckham has gone from being a luxury to being a necessity because of the Robert Woods injury. It's mad how this league tends to play out, because it was 48 hours, Michael. He signs on Thursday evening, Thursday night air time, and obviously early Thursday afternoon in LA. And then we just saw today that Robert Woods has done his ACL. Maybe some fans out there haven't read the news, but Robert Woods, their wide receiver, who has had a really good season. I know Cup gets a lot of the scrutiny and I suppose the kudos for how well he's playing. But Robert Woods is a really good, effective wide receiver, so he's gone for the season, and that'll open up an opportunity for Odell Beckham. And it's been confirmed this evening by McVay that he's going to play on Monday. I think the extra day is going to work in their favor. The fact that they're playing Monday night, he's going to be out there Monday night. There he is arriving in his banana top. Look, I don't know how it's going to play out. This team are like, we've seen teams of throughout the years. We're all in. The chips are in. They're going for it. By God, are they going for it? Because Von Miller last week giving away draft picks. They've already only got 3 picks for next year, but this is a high reward, risk-free type of deal. It's only $4.25 million. It's a 1-year contract, which is voidable as well if things don't work out. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. It'd be interesting to see how his attitude is to playing with this team, because the reality is for Odell Beckham, if he's not getting the ball, it doesn't matter who you're playing for. He wants the ball, and he'll be expecting to get the ball. And he probably will now because of Wood going out, but I still don't think he's going to be seen in the light of day the way Cup is on that team. And like, they've got effective running backs there, and if they mix it up, he's not going to see that. Look, we'll see. Monday night's going to be an interesting one. And the Packers, by all accounts, were in, but then having read more into it, the Packers lowballed the offer. I think that's more so because of what they have available to them. It was very much, do you want to come and play with Aaron Rodgers? Because, fairness to the Packers, I know we've had the Aaron Rodgers fiasco for the past fortnight, but the Packers are well with an opportunity of going to the Super Bowl as well. It wouldn't shock me, and I don't think it shock any of us if it was the Packers-Rams come the championship game in the NFC. And I know Brady's will have something to say about that, but there's probably 3 teams there right now that are in the running for that. So he probably said, look, come and play for us. There's an opportunity here. But I think once we knew LA was involved, that was always going to be the winning. The winning of the deal for me.
Picture it's February the 1st. The Packers get to the Super Bowl and Rodgers gets COVID again. Oh, sorry, February the 8th.
Absolutely, Michael. That's been discussed this week. Someone said it. I'm glad it's going to happen. It was one of the guys on ESPN during the week, and I'm glad it's happened now because they'll take learnings from this. But I don't know how they're going to take learnings from this, because the reality is, if he gets COVID during the playoffs, he's gone. He's going to derail the team's opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. He potentially going to derail the team's opportunity to get the number 1 seed. I know there's a lot of games to go, and the Cards have. You look at the Cards' schedule; they've only got 2 more teams with a winning record to play. So if they go about their business, they should have a good shot at getting that number 1 seed.
Seen a comment there as well. OBJ is a problem Cardinals fans welcome. He wants to be WR1, but he won't be because Cup is the best. I have to shout out to the Titans fans who I was sitting beside on Thursday night. Whenever the OBJ news went down, we were all buzzing. I know it's obvious now looking at it because they're all in, but I'm still really, really shocked at this move. Is Kroenke that desperate? I know he's getting on in years, but is he that desperate? Because now you're getting to the point where you bring in Von Miller, you bring in OBJ. If this doesn't work, this is the biggest fire ever. And I understand that a guy like McVay could walk away, but I mean, Kroenke, you have to wonder, does he care long term? Because this is woeful. Surely this is not going to work out. Surely. Or maybe I'm crazy.
Well, no, I kind of agree with you, Michael, because everybody has expectations of the Rams going to the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl even before this deal took place. And today we've had the Robert Woods news, but prior to that, we had Cup, Van Jefferson, the second year wide receiver who's starting to come into his own, and you've got Robert Woods. Okay, so where was Beckham going to fit into that in terms of getting the ball? Yeah, he'll get the ball, but not to the level of expectation that he has. So it's an interesting one to see. I thought what was very interesting was the bookmakers, who were very rarely wrong, on Thursday evening didn't adjust their pricing for the Super Bowl in any way, nowhere across every bookmaker. They were 8-1 to win 7-1 in air bookmakers to win the Super Bowl, and come Friday morning they were still 7-1. So everybody's looking at it. It's not like they've looked at it and went, "Oh my God, there's Odell Beckham. We better readjust accordingly." They haven't, because they don't feel he's going to be the answer in the long run, or they don't think he's going to make that much of a difference to how the season plays out.
Time will tell. We'll see what happens. Cam Newton, Colin, before we look at tomorrow's games, this weekend's games, Cam Newton back in Carolina. Sweet mother of God. What have the Panthers done? They have literally put themselves in a circle that, well, they now just can't get out of for a while. But I never thought, Colin, that Cam Newton should have left New England. I know that they wanted to go Mac Jones, but he was only let go because he wasn't vaccinated. He's now vaccinated. I know I can't legally say that. I can't confirm that. That's just an opinion by myself. But good to see him get another chance in Carolina. Yeah.
I think what's telling, Michael, is what he's been paid in Carolina versus what New England had to pay him. It tells you the haircut players are prepared to take to play in New England. Also, kind of what a desperate situation the Panthers find themselves in, that they had to pony up that cash. And obviously, we've all seen the memes this week that they're paying Cam, they're paying Cam's replacement, and they're paying Cam's replacement. And you have to say the front office there, after 3 games, everything seems super rosy. Not so now. We'll get into it. Like, Cam's very unlikely to do anything, even packages this week. The Broncos broke Cam September 2016. It's not Super Bowl. Super Bowl was bad and obviously getting out of the way of the football, but it's that first game of the 2016 season, and the Broncos just hit him from every angle. Some of it was brutal, some of it was targeting, but he has never ever looked the same since then. You want to see players do well. You'd love to see a resurgence of Cam, and he is the best, despite the issues that I just outlined. He is the best quarterback on that roster without a shadow of a doubt.
I think it's a deal that makes sense for both parties. Like, the Panthers have had to swallow their pride to a certain extent. And I know he's coming back, and it's a different time, and they've moved on twice over with 2 different quarterbacks. But the reality is they still have to save face by bringing him back. And for Cam, he's had a situation where he thought he'd be number one in New England, despite which was an up and down season last year. And yeah, we'll never really know the truth, but there is a lot of speculation out there that the Patriots, I know the Patriots are coming out and saying, no, we felt it was the right thing to move on with Mac Jones, but the fact for him not to be kept around, even as the backup, and then obviously leading into the season, we had that COVID situation where he was, he wasn't allowed in the facilities for a week, give or take 5 or 6 days. So look, this works for him to go back there. I don't think he's going to be involved at all tomorrow, Colin. I believe he's literally out of the picture. It's too late in the day to get him up to speed and how Brady, Kelly to Griffin's coordinator in terms of how he has the playbook. So next week, PJ Walker's going to start this game tomorrow. Cam is far and above, even at this stage of his career. So look, we might see a resurgence for him, because it has been the offense that's let them down over the past month. Sam Darnold is gone for 4 to 5 weeks. Maybe he'll give them a bit of a spark. I could see it working for a couple of games, but I think the reality will set in that Cam is struggling at this stage. And, I think he might play well for a couple of games, and then we'll see it go back to what we saw towards the back end of last season with the Patriots.
Okay. Week 10, 20 minutes in, we got to look at the games, boys. We got to look at the games. Week 10 sees the Falcons, who are 4-4, going up against the Cowboys, who got completely demolished last weekend. We'll not focus on that too much, don't worry. But Mark is taking the Cowboys. Colin, who have you got?
Yeah, so we won't focus on it too much, Michael, but Fred, I'm sure Fred won't like this, but I would have to say that the Cowboys, in the immediate aftermath of that defeat, made the right sort of noises. We were flat, we beaten by the better team, we'll learn from it. As the week went on, the noises coming out of Dallas grew embarrassing, to be honest. The excuses, Jerry Jones talking about the punt, and then you had Amari Cooper talking about they weren't fit. Look around the league, Amari. There's no team that it doesn't have crazy injuries, and the Broncos are a team that had a number of injuries. That would worry me. That would concern me, and I was a big fan of what the Cowboys were doing. But they'll probably get back on track. But responsibility, accountability, that's all part of it. And if you're going to say that, they were only able to shut us down because we were injured, well, yeah, that's I would definitely have concerns around that. This is going to be, I suppose, for the Cowboys, they're going up against a Falcons team who the defense is nowhere near as good as the Broncos, but the Falcons' offense is much better than the Broncos. Certainly their passing offense, and Matt Ryan is playing really, really well. And if you look back to last year, this was a 40-39 shootout. Cowboys won it. Be great if we saw something like that again tomorrow. You imagine that last week was an aberration, but the issue for the Cowboys is that it looks like that Terrence Steele is going to play left tackle again. The good news for them is they might get away with that against the Falcons, because the Falcons they're not good at getting pressured on opposing QBs. I thought it was interesting last week, though, that Matt Ryan had such a good game, even though the Saints were able to get to him. Randy Gregory is now out for the Cowboys. He was their kind of main pass rush. So to me, I'm interested to see Cordero Patterson versus Trayvon Diggs, and to see how Kyle Pitts does. He's been impressive, really impressive at times. At other times, the rookie in the rawness has shown. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win it because they're at home, and I don't think they'll have two bad performances. But I expect this to be a very high-scoring game.
I think this is a game where the Falcons match up well with this Cowboys team. I think the records are a bit off-putting. Everybody's expecting so much from the Cowboys. In fairness to the Falcons, they've lost 4 games, but they've lost all those games within 1 score. They've been in every game this season. I think Matt Ryan is actually having for the record and for the stress he gets with the offensive line not working, he's had a really efficient season. I mean, there's 5 games this season when they've scored over 26 points. That Falcons team can put up scores against a leaky Cowboys defense. Like, they were leaky last week. The week before that, I was giving it about how poorly the Vikings played. They didn't take their opportunities. And the previous week, the Cowboys gave up over 25 points on defense. So this boom or bust Trayvon Diggs situation, tomorrow, it's not one of those middle-of-the-road games for me. It's one of those you'll either intercept Matt Ryan a couple of times, or you'll be exposed because you've got players like Gage and Kyle Pitts going in there. And for me, it's a tricky one. I'm with Colin, I'm with the Cowboys, and I think the X factor might be Dan Quinn, former Falcons head coach. He's the defense coordinator for the Cowboys now. I think he'll find a way. And if anybody knows how to scheme against this Falcons offense, having been there as their head coach for so long, it's himself. But I can see a high-scoring game, and I don't think it's going to be a formality. Like, the handicap on the game is 9 points. They're expecting the Cowboys to win by 10 or more. I think this one could go down to the death. And I think the Cowboys haven't lost 2 games at home since week 12 of the 2017 season. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Cowboys will just about get it done.
Just to reiterate the significance of that win for Atlanta last week against New Orleans. Fantastic win, 27-25 in the Superdome. Matt Ryan was lights out, fantastic last week. And just talking about last week for the Cowboys, I'm still sitting here a week on, and I don't understand, 1, how they played like that, and 2, how they lost that game. Well, I know how they lost the game. They didn't turn up, but I don't understand how they didn't turn up. I don't get it. The team's 6-2, and that's after losing last week. There shouldn't be an excuse. So Dak Prescott has to come out on Sunday and has to prove, not just to the Cowboy fans, but also to the rest of the league, that the Cowboys team are for real. He wouldn't have had to have done that last week, or if they'd actually had him out and won against the Broncos. But if they had lost by maybe a McManus field goal or a touchdown last week, this wouldn't even be talked about. I think this is a huge moment for the Cowboys. If the Cowboys were to go 6-3, squeaky bum time, Brian starts seeing the East open up again. People start talking about the Cowboys, maybe messing up, but it's not going to happen. I can see Kyle Pitts having a decent game for Atlanta, but I'm taking the Cowboys, lads. I think, head over heart here, I think it's going to be the Cowboys all day. I don't think it'll be close. I really don't.
I think what we might see over the next few weeks, I'm not suggesting the Cowboys are going to lose this game, but they have some tough games coming up. I mean, we're already preparing for Thanksgiving and the shows that we're going to have that week. And they're playing the Raiders on Thanksgiving Day, which now looks like it's going to be, 2 number 1 teams in divisions potentially going up against each other. They've got some tough games coming up, and that's where I think what we'll see now is the Bucs, the Packers and the Rams kind of move on slightly, and the Cowboys fall a little bit behind, and they'll win the division, but they won't be up there in terms of challenging for that number 1 seed, and they'll end up getting that playoff game at home. And then you know yourself, come playoff time, who knows? But you know, the pressure this week on the Cowboys having lost that game next week. Can you imagine if they lose this week? It'd be twofold. But maybe the Falcons or the Fall Guys here because they've had the hump, you know, having lost that game next week. But this will be an enjoyable game. I think this will be a high scoring game.
Yeah, and obviously a huge that was a massive upset last week in Dallas. We'll talk about the Broncos going to the Eagles later on, and can they go for another win? But yeah, seems to be a full house on the Cowboys. The next game, boys, is the Jags going up against the Colts. Jags 2-6 get the win against Buffalo last week. Colts dropped to 4-5. Well, they didn't drop; they beat the Jets last week. That Thursday night football game seems like a long time ago. The Mike White experience. Mark is going with the Colts. Who have you got, Colin?
So I saw Phil Yates tweet this out during the week. So Jonathan Taylor's last 6 games, rushing and receiving. Week 4, 114, a touchdown. Week 5, 169, 2 touchdowns. Week 6, 158, 2 touchdowns. Week 7, 110, touchdown. Week 8, 122, touchdown. Week 9, 200, 2 touchdowns. Suffice to say, Jonathan Taylor has been something else through the past 6 weeks. He had a career high 253 yards when the Colts played the Jags in the season finale in 2020. So I imagine all eyes, if you're the Jags, are going to be on stopping Jonathan Taylor. The good news for the Jags is they are much better against the run than they are against the pass. So they might actually have some success in terms of slowing Taylor down. I think it's going to be very difficult to completely stop him, just in how good he's playing. The problem is that Wentz rebounded against the Jets, and Michael Pittman Jr. has actually emerged to really look like a WR1. The Jags defense really stepped up last week, and obviously Josh Allen gets the kudos in the way in which he in particular played, but all of them stepped up. To hold the Bills to 6 points was very, very impressive, you would have to say. And another interesting stat I saw was Trevor Lawrence is averaging just over 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in his divisional matchups this year. In non-division games, he averages 100 fewer yards and less than a touchdown a game. So the fact this is a division game is good news for Trevor Lawrence. So I think perhaps it'll be closer than maybe people expect. But I think the Colts, they threw the game away against the Titans a little bit, literally, in terms of Carson Wentz. And I think that they will have enough to beat this Jaguars team. But I do think it'll be tougher than people maybe expect. But I think Wentz and the Colts are going to end up giving that first round pick to Philly because he is going to keep them in it right up until the end of the season.
Colin has discussed how successful their run defense has been. They've only given up one 100-yard plus game this weekend. That was in week 5. The weekend we were in London for the Jets Falcons. That was to Derrick Henry, who most teams will give up 100 yards plus. So it shows how well they've done. And last weekend we touched on it on Monday show. They only gave up 70 yards rushing last weekend to a Bills team. In fairness, they struggling with the run game, and 50 of those were to the quarterback. So that shows how strong they were. They play cover 2 in the middle. They just said, right, beat us in the air. But to Colin's point, you'd expect that the Colts will have a balanced offense, and they'll use Taylor, but they also use Hines. Hines is very effective outside of playing running back. Last week we saw some big plays when he goes out and catches them on the perimeter. So for me, I think the Colts are going to win. You're right. I think Pittman. I had the Colts in our preseason show, and I spoke highly how well he looked towards the back end of last season. He's coming on. Pascal looks like a good wide receiver. They've got tight ends there. Doyles. Ali Cox has had a really good season. Tight end. They've got players there that can blow this open. And I think the Colts will win. I actually think Colts will win this comfortably. 7 home wins in a row when these teams play. It's going to be 8 this weekend because I think the Colts are going to do damage. And I still don't rule the Colts out winning the wild card race.
Great performance for Jacksonville last week against the Bills. I think a number of factors went into that, not just about how they played on the defense, but because the game was in Jacksonville. I think the crowd for once really showed up in Jacksonville. Never mind Josh Allen against Josh Allen. But the reality is, Lucas Oil Stadium, the crowd for the Colts will be too much. Never mind the fact that they actually have a competent offense and defense to the point where they can go and score some points against Jacksonville. I think this game will be over by halftime. I'm taking the Colts. If the game was in, is it TIAA Bank Field or whatever it's called? If it was in Jacksonville, maybe there's more of a chance for the Jags. But I think the Jags are going to finish on 2 or 3 wins. And fair play to them last week, but I'm picking the Colts.
I don't know by halftime, but one of the issues, I suppose, is that the Colts are coming in hot, whereas the Bills were coming in stuttering a little bit. The Colts are coming in having scored at least 30 points or more in their past 4 games. So this is a Colts offense that scores points. So slowing them down is going to be, key to this. But as we discussed, they have different ways of beating you.
And a Colts team who are coming off a mini boy, shall we call it, haven't played the Thursday night,
Yeah.
so they've had an extra bit of time to rest up and, I suppose, scheme for this game.
And they only played a couple of quarters in fairness, because I watched that game live. That game was over at halftime. Like, if we're even going to go into discussion here, the game was over in the mid-second quarter. Obviously, out of the control with Mike White and stuff, but my God, what a game that was. The Browns against the Patriots, both teams 5-4. This is really a really, really intriguing game. I haven't been as excited, Colin, since the Toy Show 2 weeks to go, but really, really good game. I think this game's on Sky.
I think it's the most intriguing game of the weekend in many ways. And a lot of that comes down to because these teams are so similar. And they're so similar, in fact, that the RB1 in both teams is out. But it'll be interesting, therefore, to see. I think that will probably impact the Browns more so than the Patriots. And I don't think Dearness will have the sort of success that he had against the Broncos against the Patriots. I also saw just a little while ago, Patriots activated Trent Brown off of IR, placed Jamie Collins on there. But if Brown is ready to play, that's a nice piece for them to add. Baker obviously enjoyed himself last week, but the Patriots are a very different proposition. Second best pass defense, 3 interceptions against Sam Darnold last week, but Matt Judon 9 sacks, and Browns have allowed 25 sacks. So that's a lot. The other thing that the Patriots do that Baker doesn't tend to like is they play man coverage. And Baker has struggled against man coverage. What I saw was that only Zach Wilson has struggled against man more so than Baker. So that's going to be an issue that the Browns are going to need to overcome, but they have to do that without Chubb. Expect Myles Garrett to, I think, add to his sack total, even though the Patriots have been decent enough at helping Mac Jones, but with Damian Harris out, I expect Myles Garrett to feast somewhat. Also, given that Brian Burns has put something of a target on Mac Jones's back, saying that he wishes his defensive end brothers all the best and happy hunting. Be interesting to see how that goes. I am going to say that the Patriots are going to win this because it's in Foxborough. I'm not going to be particularly surprised if the Browns did win it, but I'm going to go in a coin flip. I'm going to go for the Patriots.
I'm slightly against you, Colin, in the sense that you feel that Chubb is the bigger loss than Harris. I think Damian Harris is a significant player to this offense. I mean, everything seems to, by and large, most of it ticks through him. We saw when they went into LA early on in the game, he was getting explosive runs, and he was of his benefit in terms of he was getting the ball that was causing those methodical plays, which kept the Chargers off the field. So for me, Chubb is a great, don't get me wrong, Chubb is a great running back, but he tends to, he has explosive ones. We saw that in LA. We saw it last week against the Bengals, where he can go 80, 90 yards. So for the key for the Patriots is to have these long drives and have Harris on the field. So for him to go, I see Ernest Johnson more of a guy that can step in. I know that the Patriots defense and their run defense has been very effective, and even the defense as a whole is only averaging 19 points or less in terms of what they're giving up. But I think Ernest Johnson, having seen what he did against the Broncos, And in fairness to the Broncos, having looked at the stats throughout the season, defensively, they haven't been that bad. And he was still able to go in. I know they were at home, and there was very little expectations on him. He still had a really effective game. I could see him doing something similar. So for me, I think it is. Look, this one is a tricky one, but I don't know why. I just have a feeling the Browns will just do enough to win the game. Bill Belichick is 5-0 at home against the Browns in Foxborough, so I think it's going to change this weekend. I think the Browns find a way to get this one over the line. And having looked at Mayfield's stats this week when he played with Beckham as opposed to Beckham, it's night and day. He seems to have a better cohesion with the players around him. With Beckham not there, we saw it last week. I don't think it's going to something that we're going to see every week where they're putting 40, 50 points. But they've done it a couple of times this year. They did it in LA and they lost that game to the Chargers. I don't think it's going to be anything like that tomorrow, but I still feel the Browns will find a way to get it done. So for me, the Browns will win.
We've got a special guest coming on in 15 seconds after I give my pick for the game. He's here. I can see him smiling. Hello there. Big guest coming on. Look, I'm taking the Browns every day of the week here. I think Baker's re-energized. Look who the Patriots have played this season, bar the Chargers. I mean, come on, boys. Come on. I think the Browns are going to win this really well. I want to give a shout out to Mark Hogan for picking up the Ernest Johnson of fantasy. Thanks, Mark. You're playing me tomorrow. You're going down. But the Ernest Johnson will have a day. Delighted to bring in Jeff Reinbold. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm licking my wounds right now, buddy, to be honest with you. We played last night with first place in the East on the line and just got whacked. I mean, we got whacked. We didn't play well in any phase of the game. And it's what happens in pro football. So now you got to lick your wounds and come back, play again.
Jeff, sorry to hear about the loss last night, man.
That raw feeling, Jeff, within 24 hours of a loss.
Yep, you got to flush it and get on to the next one because this one's now become bigger because now we're in the playoffs, but you want to have a home playoff game. You don't want to have to go on the road. Excuse me, if we don't win next week, we got to go to Montreal and play on the road, and that's a tough ask. So we've made our bed. We just got to do the best with it. So.
Jeff, we really appreciate you coming on. I sort of said on the phone there, just maybe, but staying for a couple of games. But hard luck last night. I was just wondering what your thoughts were ahead of this game tomorrow. You've got the Browns, the Patriots. I think that game's on Sky. Do you think OBJ was a negative effect to the point where, as my camera goes down, do you think he'll actually re-energize his team now that he's gone in Cleveland?
I think there's that, Michael. I think this is a kind of a litmus paper test for just how much of a negative impact he was, because excuse me, the Patriots are a dangerous team, and they have a really good defense, and so I think we're going to find out a lot about who the Browns really are. Obviously, OBJ is a polarizing force anytime he's in the locker room, any locker room. And the tweets that his father sent that were attacking the quarterback, there's a segment in that locker room, that are, that don't think that way. And so this is going to be really interesting. Jarvis has made sent out a tweet about we'll see you in the Super Bowl, bro. Browns fans deserve that. Now, they've got a tough ask because they're going to go up against the master. And Baker Mayfield's going to have to be error-free. They're going to have to run the ball, and that's going to be difficult because they're beat up. New England's front seven is really good. So, I pick New England in this game. Although, if the Browns, are, like you say, a re-energized team with OBJ not in the locker room, then I can see the Browns going up there and getting it done. This is crazy because, 3 weeks ago, Michael, we were all ready to just, crown the Ravens the king. And all of a sudden now, it's the king is dead. Long live the king. Who's the next king? We don't know, but, we'll find out soon.
Jeff, me and Colin were in disagreement there. I feel Harris is the bigger loss to the Patriots at running back. He's been you know, he's not going to play tomorrow, and Chubb is already out. Who do you think is going to? I suppose who do you think impacts the most losing each running back?
I'm sorry, you got to hit me with that one again because my sound's not.
Harris, the running back for the Patriots, has been ruled out this evening, and Chubb is already out of the game. I'm just wondering which team do you feel is going to cause the biggest impact on?
Well, you know what? I guess I'm old school, man. I don't get into all the talking. You can say whatever you want to say, but when you step over that white line, you better deliver. And I think Harris is an outstanding player. And, you know, I think New England's a hard place to win. And it's interesting with this culture of young players that are in the league right now that, you know, they're selling wolf tickets 24/7 and, you know, 2 for 1 even. I mean, they got them on discount. They might even give them 3 for 1 every week. But, you know, talking don't win football games. Playing wins football games. And I think that's one of the things that has allowed the Patriots to be so consistent over, what is it now, 20 years? And in 20 years in a league that's built for right now and built for parity and built for everybody having a chance, to have that kind of success is really impressive. And it doesn't come from talking. It comes from preparing, working, and executing on game day.
Jeff, we haven't had the opportunity. It's always good to welcome you, but we haven't had the opportunity to welcome you on since the Kansas City Chiefs didn't look so hot. I mean, they have looked absolutely phenomenal ever since Patrick Mahomes entered the league. But all of a sudden this season, they're not like they have found a way in the past couple of weeks, probably helped by the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love making his debut, and the Giants, you know, a couple of decisions maybe towards the end. But what are your thoughts on Big Red and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, Colm, that I've been listening to every episode with you guys because I never miss an episode. And if you're a fan, you better not miss an episode because you guys really bring it every week. But, you know, I think there's a thing that's happens, and this is, again, the danger of the NFL hype machine, because Patrick comes into the league, and if you look at Patrick today, and I would really encourage all the quote, you know, analysts and pundits to go look at Patrick today and look at Patrick his first year as a starter, and look at the difference between him. And there's a couple things that I see as I evaluate it. All of a sudden, the no-look pass that was such a phenomenon, and the off-platform throws, and all of the things that were the wow factor plays, now you see him want to do it when he doesn't need to do it, right? And I think that's a byproduct of the hype machine, the thing that gets you the commercials on TV and all the adulation and all the. And I think that's an easy trap for an athlete to fall into. The other part of it is people have, you know, you're a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. You are paid millions of dollars a year to figure out how to beat your opponent, right? And so they spend a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of effort to see what works and what doesn't work. And what people have found is if you can take Tyreek away, if you can keep him from blowing the top off the coverage and making those big plays and force Kansas City to go 8 plays, 10 plays, 12 plays in a drive, NFL teams, they can't do that. They can't sustain that. Then you add the hype factor on top of it, and you know they've been loose. They've been careless with the football. They turned the ball over way too. And defensively, they're not built for that, right? So when they can't get up 12, 14, 21 points, they struggle because their defense is built to rush the passer and, you know, play zone coverage, but not be in tight games. And so what do you do if you're going to beat Kansas City's defense? You find where Daniel Sorensen is, and you isolate him, and you go after him. You know, they struggle stopping the run. You know, that's not a revelation. That's just the reality of who the Kansas City Chiefs really are today. And the competition is built to catch up to you. And you look, the Raiders are better, the Broncos are better, the Chargers are better. And so it's a much more competitive division than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Jeff, the next game we were due to preview is the Bills against the Jets tomorrow. Mike White is going to play in this game. I read a funny one this week where they said it would only be only the Jets would come up with a franchise quarterback in the year that they pick second in the draft. But does it really matter in the long run as long as he's the right man? I mean, we saw when Russell Wilson was drafted, Matt Flynn got the big contract that offseason to go to Seattle. If he's the right man, what does it matter?
You know what we just talked about know when to say when, right? And I think Mike White needs to learn how to say when, because when you go out and you make a comment like, I think I should have been the first player picked in the draft, I go, oh boy, be really careful what you're asking for there, young man, because the defensive players that have a lot of pride, and especially in Buffalo right now, who are coming off of a Miami that are in Jacksonville. So now's the time to be humble, not to be out there throwing your name out there, because I'm going to tell you something. That Buffalo defense is going to get after his young ass. And excuse me, I'm going to say it this way, fellas, because it's your show. It's going to be an ass whipping between the Jets and the Bills. The Jets are going to be supplying all the ass. I'm just
that Bills secondary has only given up 5 touchdowns this season. That Bills secondary has only given up 5 touchdowns this season in total.
Yeah, but they haven't played the Jets but one time, I think, or what? I'm telling you, I will come on your show and I will beg for forgiveness if the Bills. No, I don't know what more I could do than beg for forgiveness. I'll sponsor your show for a week if the Jets beat the Bills.
Jeff,
get the checkbook out.
Absolutely, Jeff. Last week, and you're talking there about Buffalo. You boys are talking about Buffalo Bills going up against the Jets on Sunday. But last week, Jeff, the Jaguars beat the Bills. I mean, and by God, that was a poor performance from Buffalo. Do you take anything from that, or do you think it's very much like a freak week? Obviously the Cowboys as well last week got stunned against Denver.
It was a wild weekend. I mean, it was really, really crazy weekend. And I think what you see really is what the NFL is built for. They want parity. They want everybody to have a chance any given Sunday. And so, I'm telling you guys, one of the hardest things for a football team and for football coaches and football players on the professional level is to have the ability to shut out the noise, because it's never ending. I mean, it's never ending. Imagine you guys do a show and there's thousands of people that tune in to hear what you have to say, right? And if you take that and put it in the framework of the professional athlete who has 100,000 Twitter followers and 1 million Instagram followers, and everybody wants to tell them how good they are all the time. They're winning. As soon as they lose, they want to tell them how miserable they are. So all of that, you have to somehow find a way to see it for what it is and leave it outside the building. The great teams and the great organizations, and again, it sounds like I'm a Patriots fan, which I'm really not, but the Patriots have done the greatest job of any team, in my opinion, in recent history, of insulating themselves from all that noise. I thought Tony Dungy did a great job of it when he was in Indianapolis. That's the difference, between the teams that are constantly doing that thing of up and down and up and down. They're great one week, miserable the next week, great 3 weeks, and go into a place like Jacksonville and get beat. But, and I say this to our players all the time, you got to remember, the guy on the other side of you, he's getting paid too. He's not playing for free, right? So he's got some pride, he's got some value, and he's a great athlete.
Jeff, one team who make a lot of noise, louder than maybe my shirt and even your shirts at times, is the LA Rams and their owner. I'm just interested because they have, especially in the past few weeks, we saw the game against the Lions where the Lions kind of played it like a Super Bowl. Then there was the weird game against the Texans where they were so far up, but they allowed the Texans back into it. Then they signed Von Miller. But then the Titans, Matthew Stafford turns into Carson Wentz. And then obviously the OBJ signing, but then they lose Robert Woods. What do you make of the Rams?
Well, I don't know if this is timely or not, but I just saw that Robert Woods tore his ACL, and now he's out. So that makes the OBJ signing even more critical because they had gotten rid of Deshaun Watson, I think, 2 weeks ago. So there is a hole in that receiving core, which OBJ has the wherewithal to fill. So if you're, Les Snead, the general manager, you're feeling pretty good about your timing. Here's the thing with Los Angeles. Los Angeles as a market is a star place, right? They need stars. Like, you're Chip Kelly and you're the head coach at UCLA. You're standing in the line to get into Morton's, with the rest of the, bourgeoisie, I guess. But, if you're OBJ or you're Sean McVay, you're getting in. But that's LA. They need stars. So OBJ to LA, I think, is a nice match. Now, whether he'll be able to be the player that he was 5 years ago when he was a Pro Bowler, or will he be the distraction that he's been, hurt, unhappy, a distraction that he's been for the last 5 years? We'll see. But where I respect what the Rams have done is they've said, our Super Bowl window is now, and we're going to do everything that we can do to get into the game. We got to get there. And if it means mortgaging the future, which they have in a lot of ways, then I think they've made the right choice. I'm going to tell you, fellas, I really question how much the worth of draft picks today, as opposed to what it was years ago. Because everybody, the personnel guys and the teams and all that, the hype around the draft, they want those first round picks. They want to see that guy go up and get the hug from the commissioner on the stage and put the hat on his head and, all the hype that goes with it. But I'm going to tell you, who's won Super Bowls on draft picks lately? Hadn't been the Patriots. Hadn't been Tampa Bay, right? Now, they had a foundation, but what they did is they went out and got guys that they needed. And so it's a blending of the whole thing. Can you build a strong foundation through the draft, and can you go out and get those impact free agents? And we're going to find out whether the Rams, with the Matthew Staffords and OBJ and the guys that they've brought, Little and all the guys that they've gotten into that place, is that going to be enough to propel them to the top? We'll see. That's one of the reasons we get on shows like this and talk about it.
Time will tell, Jeff. Time will tell.
Yep.
Really appreciate you coming on, Jeff. We got two quick things. The first one is because we're going to do the game in a second. Who have you got tomorrow? The Bills or the Jets? I think I know who you're going to pick. And secondly, your man Fred.
What did I just say, Michael?
I know.
What did I just say? I will sponsor your show for a week. And I know that's expensive, but I'm willing to take that risk if the Jets beat the Bills.
Fred Flug's commented, just ask you a question, Jeff, just finally. Jeff, it's easy to have a great winning ethos when you're successful. How do you build that team ethos in a rebuild team? So if you're rebuilding, how do you build that ethos?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that people need to understand about a rebuild. First of all, you better start, and I'm talking about drafting. That's the first foundation of a rebuild. Because you're usually, if you're in a rebuild, that usually means most times that you've got high draft picks because you've been bad, right? Unless you wasted them, in bad trades. But you better get good big people, right? Good big people, and I think there's no better proof of that than the Dolphins, the Dolphins have controlled the draft, but if you look at the big people that they've drafted, they haven't produced. And so there's plenty of speed, there's plenty of talent, there's plenty of, big play guys that you can get in free agency, but you better draft good big bodies on the defensive line and on the offensive line. That to me is the first part of it. And then the second part of it is when you select your free agents and you look at guys you're going to bring into your program, you want to bring guys into your program that fit what you want to do. The culture that you have, what you're trying to, guys that are maybe undervalued guys in terms of what, the hype says, but are guys that are solid, good football guys. And then you can fill in with some divas on top of that. But if you build it on divas, it's a shaky slope.
Jeff, we want to first off thank you for coming on. There's a good few comments here. Darren saying it's always good to see Jeff reach out to the NFL fans in Ireland and the UK. Loads of people watching as well. I just want to thank you, man. But also, we want to wish you the very best over the next few weeks in Canada. Hopefully, we don't see you on TV and Sky for a few more weeks. You get to win that Grey Cup, and maybe first, second week in December we can grab a pint in Dublin. But man, just the very, very, very best, and we really appreciate your support.
I keep hoping that because I think there's a flight from Hilo to LA and then LA to Dublin, and then we could do that.
Let's do it, man. I think we
sounds
definitely
like a plan, Jeff. Sounds like a plan.
Hey guys, I got to tell you seriously, and no joking aside, you guys do a phenomenal job, and I love watching what you do every week, and I check in every week, and keep bringing the goods, man, because you guys do an awesome job.
Appreciate that, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, thanks so much, Jeff. Massively appreciate you, and just obviously again wish you all the best over the next few weeks and months. And we can't thank you enough for your support. We ask anybody watching, check out Jeff's show, Coffee with Coach, during the week as well on social media at Jeff_Reinbull. Jeff, take care. Have a couple more glasses of wine for us, yeah? Mahalo.
All right, aloha.
See you, Jeff.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
The main man, gentlemen. The main man. Fred saying, "Oh lads, Dublin, let's get mental. Bring the coach up to Glen."
Glendalough. You don't know Glendalough?
Come on now. Come on. You know where I'm from. Come on.
We might even bring him to Clara Lara. What do you reckon? Colin, get him on the swings.
Bring him to Armagh, maybe. That might be my equivalent. I have no idea.
Want him to come back. We want him to come back, Michael.
Armagh's a city. It's a cathedral. There's two cathedrals in Armagh. Lovely city, lovely town. There's a Domino's Pizza and also a cricket field. So we'll have a lovely time. Bills 5-3, Jets 2-6. Let me just very quickly, because we haven't put Mark's pick in. I feel bad. Hold on. Mark picked the Patriots to beat the Browns, and he's also picking the Bills. I'm going to run and get a pint of Guinness because he's put me in the mood. Colin, who have you got today?
I can see obviously why this is a get right game for the Bills, and they need to win given what happened last week. And they're going up against the Jets team who, are ranked bottom in terms of points given up and bottom in terms of yards allowed. So you're thinking this should absolutely be an opportunity for the Bills to get back on track. And they should. But if I'm to make any sort of case for the Jets, and this is any given Sunday, and this is the Jets who, we have seen this already beat the Titans and beat the Bengals, and they're the Mike White Jets. It's the fact that the Colts and the Patriots use their O-line to expose, I suppose, the Jets. And I don't think the Bills are going to be able to do that in the same way. And I think it's that is maybe the one glimmer of light that you can take for it. I mean, Mike White made those comments, and I suppose that's where it's going to be very interesting, because he is going up against a serious unit in the Bills defense. They have been outstanding, and it wasn't their fault that the Bills didn't win last week. So, you would have to say the Bills absolutely should win this, but they have to show up. I mean, the Jets have allowed 45 or more points in 2 of the last 3 games. If the Bills want to be contenders, if the Bills really want to be Super Bowl winners, then they have to win tomorrow. If they don't, and if Mike White leads the Jets to victory, maybe he will be the starting QB for the rest of the season. But I'm going to go Bills.
I think he's coming up against a different animal for 2 reasons. One, this Bills defense, okay, they lost to the Jags last week. The reality is they still only gave up 9 points. I know there's a few other missed field goals. The Bills defense this year has consistently been strong. Touched on it there when talking to Jeff. I don't actually think he got what I was trying to say, but the point I was trying to make was they've only given up 5 touchdowns, passing touchdowns this year. That shows how strong they've been in comparison to last year. And I know the Jets have had a resurgence, and they put up 30 points against the Bengals, and they did it last week with a different quarterback. It wasn't even with Mr. Mike White. But I think this is a different situation. I think having lost that game last week, this is a get-right game for the Bills, and I think the Bills will win. And I think the line is 13. I can understand why, because I just don't think it's going to happen for the Jets. I think the Bills will win, and I don't think it's one of those kind of games you'll be too concerned about going into the 4th quarter unless we see something miraculous like what we saw against the Bengals. I think the Bills get it right tomorrow and they win this game comfortably.
I think it's an intriguing game not presented to you by Nitro Surge. But look, at the end of the day, this Bills team, boys, the Jets can turn it on at home in terms of their defense and hoping for a little mistake on either side of the ball. I just can't see it happening. I just don't think they're going to have any sort of luck against the Bills team that, frankly, for the sake of Bills Mafia, needs to win. I mean, even if Josh Allen does mess up a little bit, you would still think the Bills have it in them to come back in the second half of the game. Could you see the Jets maybe going into an early lead? Yes. But the Bills will come back because the Bills are the better team. The Bills can't lose this game. And I just can't see how the Jets get a win on Sunday. And I'm taking the Bills. I don't think it'll be close. It'll not be like that Bengals game. What was the other game the Jets won, Colin? It was at home as well. Titans. Jesus, I don't know how I forgot about that. It won't be as close as that. But the Bills will win, and I think the Bills will pull away towards the end. Have a feeling it might be tight for the first half or so. Where's Brian? Is he gone?
I think he may have been jealous of your pint of Guinness, so gone to get himself one.
But he hasn't got the machine. Shout out to Paul Pabst. There's a comment here just before we move on very quickly. Glen, let me put the graphic on to the proper one. Glendalough is the biggest tourist spot in Ireland after Clare. I fancy the Jets. Don't know why. Yes, okay. I must have to go sometime. Brian, thanks for joining us back. We're ready to go again.
I just want to make a point. I can't believe. Sorry, of all the games this weekend, if I feel like we spoke about the Bills at the Jets more than I expected. I thought that would have been a very quick and easy one. I assumed you picked the Bills, Michael. Yeah,
I did.
Okay.
I do think, though, and I said the column, I do think it will be closer. I think you could see the Jets coming into a bit at the start, but the Bills will have too much for them, I think. In what is after last week, boys, by God, it's a must-win game for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Next up, Lions 0-8, Steelers 5-3. The Lions column didn't win the bye week, didn't lose the bye week either, according to all the memes, but an interesting game ahead for the Steelers.
Well, this is an opportunity for the Steelers to sit atop the AFC North. They're on a 4-game win streak, but they shouldn't have won on Monday night. They got bailed out in that respect. For the Steelers, it's about their pass rush. It's about putting pressure on opposing QBs. TJ Watt, 11.5 sacks. Goff has been sacked 23 times in 8 games. He has 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. The Steelers have issues particularly on the roll line. Okay, they don't protect Big Ben and they don't open up lanes for Najee Harris. But the Lions only have 14 sacks and he can run on them. So I think this is an opportunity, I suppose, for the Steelers to put down a marker. I'm sure that the Lions coming off a bye will, want to try to make a statement similar to the way in which they played against the Rams. But it'll be up to the Steelers to lean on that experience that they have. Big Ben, Mike Tomlin, TJ Watt. They should have enough to beat a Lions team that are trying but just simply don't have the players. I do think bringing in Josh Reynolds is a smart move because it at least gives them some speed, but I think the Steelers are moving to 6-3.
I think it's no coincidence that we've seen an improved play from Big Ben in the fourth since they've gone on this bit of a run. And look, he's not putting up massive numbers and he's not putting up big long plays down the field, but he's just doing enough. And having seen him at the start of the season where he looked like he was completely exposed and looked like he should have retired, I think we've seen a slight resurgence, nothing major, but he's not shown any interceptions. He's shown he's shown touchdowns in the game, but ultimately it's on the Steelers defense to win the games. But at the same time, they put up points and this is the thing with this, this is all down to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's such a fantastic head coach. And, when they were written off at the start of the season, and even a fortnight ago when people started questioning whether he was going to go coaching in the Cottage League. I mean, come on. Imagine he walked out of Steelers tomorrow. There'd be teams jumping all over him to be their head coach. So it was very disrespectful. And I think that will, as much for the team as for him, to re-energize them and say, we've got a point to prove to the league. And maybe we'll come back, when the off season comes around again and say, God, the Roonies were right when they were with us in the Wilshire in July, because they said this team will go quietly about their business this season, and come January they'll be in the playoffs, and if they win tomorrow they'll top the division. Going against a Lions team that they're a bit strange. I know they've lost every game, but they play well one week, lose. They play very poorly the following week, and it seems to be a bit of a trend. But within that trend of playing well and then playing poorly, they've still not scored over 20 points in 7 games in a row, which is a big concern. Going against a defense that didn't play great on Monday night, but by and large the season has been really effective. So for me, I don't think anybody's going to be picking the Lions this week. I think Steelers are going to win this game comfortably.
Mark didn't pick the Lions this week. You'll be glad to hear.
Yeah.
No, do you remember the week he did? It was
same week. Same week. No, he picked them against the Bengals. That's right.
Yeah. If I'm Mike Tomlin and I'm going up against an 0-8 Lions team, this is me right now. It's a bye week for the Steelers. The Steelers are going to go 6-3.
We know what's happening now, so because we keep
Lions having a hope in hell, having a chance. And I don't need to apologize to many people because I haven't had a tweet from a Lions fan all year. So
Lions fans, now is your opportunity.
See you Monday morning.
I remember doing Jeff's show, Roar the Lions UK. Guy was really sound. I think they know we were in a rebuild mode there. They have been for like the last 60 years. But look, it's fine. I'm looking forward to the yearly Thanksgiving game, getting home from work in a couple of weeks, watching the Lions. But they haven't a hope in hell. There's more chance of Brian's Wayne's popping up on the toy show in 2 weeks. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. I hope they do.
We'll see. You have me worried now, Michael.
Somebody contact RTE there and see if we can get them on in a couple of weeks. So Mark is not going with the Lions. He's going with the Steelers. I think. Look, I don't want to give away Mark's picks, but he's playing the safe boys this week, big time. He's playing.
I think a lot of us will be.
This is a I know Colin, you said about the Browns and the Patriots being probably the game of the week. I love this game. You've got the Super Bowl champion and Trevor Siemian going up against the guy that wants to be a champion, Ryan Tannehill. No Derrick Henry, but the Titans are looking good. By God, what a performance last Sunday night in LA, shutting up a lot of celebrities, Colin.
Yeah, obviously a big win. The one thing you'd say was that they were gifted 14 points. Matthew Stafford gifted them 14 points. So that certainly helps when they do that. But the Titans, after that surprise loss to the Jets, are 5-0. Last 4 wins: Bills, Chiefs, Colts, and Rams. So serious opposition. They're beating really good teams at times, and a struggling Chiefs team. But we talked about it on Monday Night Show, getting the sacks. 5 sacks last week, 23 so far this year, when they had 19 through all of last year. I do wonder, in second week post Derrick Henry, against a Saints team that are really good against the run, depending on what way you want to measure it, either first or second against the run in the league. So they will miss Derrick Henry undoubtedly this week, even if Adrian Peterson needs, I think, is it 1 touchdown where he equal Walter Payton, and if he gets another, then he ties Jim Brown. So serious company for Adrian Peterson, but it's not the Adrian Peterson of 5 years ago. The thing about the Saints is, where are they going to get the points from? Alvin Kamara is out, and as much as Trevor Siemian might have fond memories of his time with the Broncos, I think they have problems because Kamara is kind of so fundamental. And yeah, they brought back Mark Ingram, who will help, but I think undoubtedly Sean Payton is a very good coach. He will scheme. I could see a way they win, but I think on the balance of probabilities, they won't be able to score enough points to stop this Titans team. I expect a very close game, but the Titans to edge it. And if the Titans do edge it, then they have the easiest schedule in the league after this.
Michael, I don't think we've gone against each other in any game so far, which is very unusual normally. For this game, I'm kind of a column on this because I was very high on the Saints defense, and that's why I picked them a couple of weeks ago when they played against the Bucs, because they've given them a lot of trouble in the past. And I could see a scenario where their front seven will do damage on the Titans' offensive line, which in pass protection is very poor. And, last week, I think they were on a bit of a, not say a crestful way, but they wanted to put a point to make that they can play well without Derrick Henry. But they still only put up 14 points last week, because their defense really helped them out. When I say 14 points, there was an pick 6, and then they intercepted at the 1 yard line. So effectively, you might as well call it, another pick 6. And they're going, and to Colin's point, where are the Saints going to score points? Because I think what we saw with Trevor Siemian in that game, he came in against the Bucs, and I made the point last week, nobody within the Bucs camp would have schemed against him. And he didn't even do anything too fantastic in the game. It was all dunk and dive passes. But last week, the Falcons, they came back well. Their defense didn't show up, and I see a scenario here where I just can't see them scoring enough. Julio Jones hasn't scored a touchdown against the Saints in 7 games, dating back to his time with the Falcons. I think that's going to get corrected tomorrow. I see Julio in the end zone, and I see Titans winning. And to Colin's point, if they get this one over the line with the games they're coming up, very winnable games are in that poor division, there's a legitimate chance they could end up with that number 1 seed if they keep going in the direction that they're going. So it's the Titans for me.
Thank you for the analysis. Just to confirm, Alvin Kamara is out tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Kamara's gone,
Titans
which is a key point as to why we don't. He without him, significant loss.
Titans are winning this game, and it is November the 13th, 11:19 p.m. The Titans will be the number 1 seed in the AFC. No doubt about it.
Write that down.
You can write that down right now. The Tennessee Titans, shout out to Irish Titans, are the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Not the Chiefs.
not.
Yeah, not the Chiefs, Michael.
No.
Sure.
No. Should the Broncos and the Chiefs are joined on the same record?
I know, I'm joking.
So, I mean, it is what it is. Titans for me. Titans are going to finish the season at the end of week 17. Week 18, as the number 1 seed in the American Football Conference.
The worry also for the Saints is they were able to get to Matt Ryan last week and sack him. Yeah. But even though they were able to do that, they couldn't slow him. Matt Ryan threw all over them last week. So that was an unusual one for them. And that's why I think that you can get to Ryan Tannehill. Absolutely. We've seen the Titans give up a number of sacks. But if getting to the QB and sacking him doesn't slow him down, that's an enormous concern. Sean Payton will probably right the ship, but it's just coming up against the Titans team who are so hot. As I said, it should be the Titans to win it.
We've had multiple comments saying that Julio Jones is an IR. I think Adrian Peterson's going to have a day tomorrow. Sorry, Brian. Just Patriots feeder and at NH_2. Jones has been put on IR.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I'll take that back. He won't be in the end zone. He might be in the back of the end zone celebrating with the rest.
He might be waving.
Yeah, exactly. This game is the one on Sky, by the way. It's not the Browns, Patriots. Sky are going with this game.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go. And look, Mark is picking the Titans. I'm picking the Titans. I actually think Adrian Peterson rolls back the years tomorrow. I know I said that last week. But who here went with the Titans last Sunday?
Your good self, Michael.
Okay. The next game, folks, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are going up against the Washington Football Team.
Upset
6-2 against 2-6. We're talking about rolling back the clock, Colin, with Cam Newton in Carolina. They haven't been the same team since Ron Rivera left, as far as I'm concerned. Hell of a coach, underrated, and I think Carolina would do well to get him back.
Well, he led a 2-7 team last year to the playoffs, so he is capable of reviving Lazarus. But even in a 17-game season, I don't see Washington making the playoffs this year. The Bucs are going to be without AB, likely without Gronk, likely without Scotty Miller. I see Chris Godwin is going to play. Even if Godwin had been out, Mike Evans' 6 touchdowns since week 5 are the most in the NFL. So they just have such a bevy of weapons. And in Mike Evans, in Godwin, you could flip a coin as to whether AB, Evans, Godwin, who is WR1. They're all capable of catching. They're all capable of making big plays. And Tom Brady just doesn't take weeks off. Yeah, he loses games occasionally, but he never, ever takes the foot off the gas. He is a man on a mission constantly. And the Washington team are terrible against the pass. I mean, yes, their pass rush is beginning to finally wake up, but Chase Young still only has 1.5 sacks. But I think, Brady, Leonard Fournette, it's difficult to see the Washington football team with Taylor Heineke, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and that's with fewer than 2 sacks a game. Okay, the O-line is one thing that Washington have actually going for them that's going really well. So they've protected him, and yet he hasn't been able to take advantage of it. The Bucs pass D is beginning to improve as well as they get healthier. So I'm going to say that the Bucs are going to go into Washington. They're going to get the win. and they are going to be sitting at 7-2, and the Washington football team are going to be 2-7.
Yeah, thanks to Keith for putting in that point. Yeah, I've just been informed he is unavailable, so he will not be scoring a touchdown in the end zone. Maybe celebrating with the guys, as I said a few minutes ago. Thanks, Keith. I hope Keith is well. He's happy after their result on Thursday. Upset alert, yeah, Michael. Here comes the upset. No, not for me. Bucks all.
Oh, come on.
Bucks all the way. You have another wide
Upset.
receiver. Another wide receiver that stepped in and done nicely for the Bucks is Tyler Johnson. He had a reasonably good start to his career last year, and the last few weeks we've seen Brady start to use him a little bit more, and he's been very productive. So there is other players in the offing for the Bucks. They have got a length of wide receivers that they can bring in. This Washington, I think Colin has touched on how erratic this Washington defense has been. Bearing in mind what we saw last year, and as we discussed on numerous shows leading into the season, we thought they'd be really good this season and they'd be scary, but 286 yards passing, that's the average they're giving up. And it's not even about the defense. The offense hasn't really done much. I mean, Scary Terry has been injured. He's been in and out of the team. Gibson, the running back, was really effective last year. Last 3 games, 60 or less yards rushing, not one touchdown in there. Maybe that's more of a team situation than him, him in isolation in terms of how he's playing, but I can't see him improving. The only way I could see them is that the Bucks are coming off the bye week, and sometimes coming off the bye week, teams start slowly, and they only get it together late in the game, and by then the game is either lost or it's in the melting pot, and they just don't do enough to win the game. It's the only way I could see a scenario where Washington find a way. But then Washington are coming off the bye as well, so we've seen that a couple of times this year. It's very rare where 2 teams are coming off the bye. So for me, the Bucks, I think the line is 9.5. It's a fair reflection. I think the Bucks will win the game.
9.5 line with our partners at Matchbook Betting Exchange. I don't want to say lump it, but 18 plus, please gamble aware. How the hell is Taylor Heineke going to get more yards, more touchdowns? Even how is Antonio Gibson or McKissick or whatever get? Boy, it's not going to happen.
I was looking at this game during the week, and I reflected back on that playoff game in the wild card. The late game on Saturday night last year, where with 5 minutes to go, we were still in the melting pot. But we're looking, it's a different team now. Like, this Washington team is not. It's not the reflection of the team we saw last year. I know it was a poor division, poor record, but they were still probably the best team in the end. And they gave the Bucks a fair crack, but it's a different situation. And the game is going to be in a half-empty stadium. I mean, Washington fans are so disgruntled with the way the organization is running the team. There'll be very few there. There'll be more Bucks fans than Washington fans.
Yeah, I can't see past the Bucks. I'm not going to say Bucks by 40. Like Ron just commented, Ron's a Broncos fan, clearly putting that at me for last week. Ron, I'm not going to slag you because you have won Fan of the Year for the Broncos. Congratulations. I know you've got a spare Super Bowl ticket, so I'm not going to annoy you, and we'll just move on from that there. The Bucks are going to win. I could actually see the Jets have a better chance winning than WFT have this week. No chance in hell. Brady's had a week off. Brady's up for it, boys. He got beaten New Orleans. He'll be spitting. He'll be going for it.
Yeah, he'd be steering on that one for 2 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, because he didn't get to tweet W for the last 2 weeks.
My heart bleeds.
Anyway,
Mark picked Washington, I assume, yeah.
He actually, sorry, you forgetting Mark. Sorry, man. It's been a long week.
I don't think you even have to look. I think we know.
He's picked the Bucks. Let's just get this over with now, so I can tell you. Mark has picked the Cardinals for the next game. Panthers 4-5 going up against the Cardinals. Colin, I know we talked about this at the start, but could you see Cam Newton in this game? Like, I know we talked about maybe he might have a minimal role to play over the next couple of weeks, but surely if he gets a couple of things going, he might just start turning back the clock and running like a 12-year-old schoolgirl to lunch.
He won't have a minimum role because after this game, he's going to be front and center. When PJ Walker was very good when he wasn't in the NFL, but then he entered the NFL, and when Sam Darnold is a better option than you at QB, you're not a good QB. And Cam Newton is going to be the option. Add in the fact that their line is terrible, and you can expect PJ Walker to be running for his life tomorrow because the Cardinals get sacks. And the Panthers, are really good against the pass. And we don't know yet, and there doesn't seem to be any reports out there that I've seen around whether Kyler Murray and D-Hop will play. It seems to be a game time decision for both of them. And so if it is Colt McCoy, Brian was talking during the week that like he had a very good game when he came in initially for the Giants. He slowed after that. I imagine, the Panthers may be able to slow him down, bring Gilmore in. But I struggle to see that they, even with Christian McCaffrey back, and he should be more effective this week, I still think the Cards will very likely have too much. If I was the Panthers, I'd do anything I could to try to get Cam in. But they won't, because look, he hasn't had enough time. But I just think PJ Walker is really going to struggle against a Cards defense that, even shorn of JJ Watt, is still playing very, very well. We saw them last week. I think even if Colt McCoy slows down, they'll do enough. I don't think this will be a particularly high-scoring affair, but I do have the Cards going to 9-1 and absolutely cementing their playoff status.
I think the two scenarios are in play, which Columns alluded to. One, I think we will see Colt McCoy slow down. Therefore, I don't think we'll see the Cards offense be as aggressive and be as successful as they were last week against. Still is one of the better defenses in the league. I know they've lost Brian Bournes, but on their day, the Panthers defense can do well. I think that's what will happen. I think the Panthers defense will find a way to keep them in the game, but ultimately it'll come down to the fact that they've gone 5 games in a row without 200 yards or more offensively. I know predominantly that's all down to Sam Darnold, but it doesn't say a lot when PJ Walker's coming in. And for a guy who, it just shows that the drop off from the NFL to the XFL, because he was lighting it up in the XFL and he looked like he'll get another opportunity in the league. And in fairness, he got a few chances last year, and he's had a few chances this year, and it's just not good enough. Cards will win. Won't be a blowout. Won't be an exciting game. 4th quarter comfortable. They move on. I don't think Kyler Murray will play. You're saying about games, bye weeks for don't play him this week. I think it's more so that they know there's bigger teams coming up for the Cards and they won't play him. They're looking at the schedule. They've only got 2 teams. They've only got to play 2 more teams with a winning record. The Rams, because they're in the division, and they've got the Cowboys. I'm not sure where they are in terms of home and away, but get those games out the road, and then the other ones after. Good chance the Cards are going to be number 1 seed.
I'm casually checking right now to see if Kyler Murray is playing on Sunday, but I can't see anything.
I tried. I couldn't see anything. Schefter tweeted the list of players who he expected to play and who he expected to be out. Neither Kyler Murray nor Hopkins were on either list.
Well, thank you, folks, for not helping us out today.
The media,
I don't really think.
The media outlets indicate that they think he won't play, but you know yourself.
I don't think he will. I don't think it'll matter. I just don't think it matters. Like the Cardinals will still find a way to win this game. Last week against New England, the Panthers looked like school children. That New England team are not on special. I know they've got a good defense and they're getting there and they're building up, but they are not in any way at all a special team. I think the Browns will put that off tomorrow. So to lose 24-6 against that team says one thing, but I just cannot see how Arizona don't win this game. And you're right in what you're saying about Kyler Murray. Leave him off. Rest him. Dak Prescott should never have played last week, for example. Leave him off. Keep the crack. Keep the time. As Ron says, they're Cards by 60. I think Cards by 20. Yeah, he's taking a mick out of me.
I know
last week, but
Cards go to Seattle next week. Sorry, Michael. So you'd have to think they'd be looking at that as a forefront of where Kyler Murray should be. Do you want to risk him this week against a game they could arguably should win and do more damage, or have him fully fit for a game next week that effectively, if they win, potentially will put Seattle completely out of the picture? I know we haven't even.
It's like Champo, isn't it? Cotton wool. Put his leg up. Enjoy yourself. Not going to happen. Picking the Cards. Cards go 9-1. My God. Right. Vikings, Chargers. This is a really intriguing game, Colin, because the Chargers need a win here, don't they? They in this division, they need a win.
Yeah, but so does everybody in
I know,
the
but to get
AFC. Like the thing about this week though is that you do have the Raiders and the Chiefs, so some team is going to lose, but the Chargers, of course, and Herbert was fantastic last week, and he's going up against the Vikings side where Patrick Peterson is on IR. Daniil Hunter is out for the rest of the season, and Breland isn't having a good year. So, and even with that, like their pass rush, and I suppose Patrick Peterson and Zimmer scheming a little bit had meant that they had been playing well against the pass, but it really feels like injuries are beginning to take their toll on this Vikings side. I think Rachael and Slater versus Emerson Griffin will be a fascinating matchup. We had Sam Monson on during the week, and Sam was talking about how impressed he was with Slater. So I think that's one to keep an eye on. You can run on both of these teams. So I don't know if with what's going on, is Dalvin Cook going to play? If he is, then he expects him to put up yards. The issue for the Charge, Austin Eckler, if he can stay fit and in the game, he should put up yards because you can absolutely run on them. But the Chargers do play the pass very well, even though Kirk Cousins has been playing well this year. We know that this is a Vikings team, talked about time and time again. They always keep it tight. I imagine they will. They are going to be desperate for a win as well, because if they lose, and they go 3-6, they're quite deep in the mire. But I think that the Chargers at home, with Herbert playing as well as he is, should have enough to beat this Vikings side. I'm going to go with the Chargers, but it's the Vikings. The Vikings are capable of beating anyone and losing to anyone.
I mean, Colin makes the point around Cook and how productive Cook can be for this Vikings team against Chargers defense that's given up an average of 161 yards a game. But the problem is you just don't know with the Vikings. And Colin was talking about it. Like 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys, Cook could have had a field day. They didn't really use him properly. They went with passing all night. Are we going to see the same scenario tomorrow? You just don't know. Herbert, for some reason, has had his most productive games against the NFC as opposed to the AFC. He's had 300 plus yards against every NFC team he's played. So I don't know if it's a situation because the AFC see more of him and they know what to expect, or the NFC just, but it's bizarre because all his good games have come against them. There's been a number of players this week who've been in isolation because of COVID, in the Vikings. Touchdown time again. It's not so much about how poor they are, it's about the preparation for the game. I think that will impact on them. Mike Williams hasn't had a touchdown in 3 games. He's completely off kilter. I see it coming back this Sunday. I'm going for the Chargers to win. I think it'll be a high scoring one. I think we'll see players like Mike Williams bounce back and have really good games for the Chargers to win.
Yeah, as Colin said, Raiders playing the Chiefs there. Somebody's going to have to lose in the AFC West this weekend. Broncos playing the Eagles as well. We'll talk about that game next. But the Chargers have to win this game. The Chargers winning against Philadelphia set that precedent where they can get it over the line. They need to get this over the line against a team that never get it over the line with Mike Zimmer. So they're not going to. Let me predict the game right now. The Chargers will be up by 2 points with 2 minutes to go. The Vikings will get the ball to the 40-yard line of the Chargers and go for a field goal, and it'll doink off the inside of the post and go out, and they'll lose the game again. The Chargers are going to win this game. But what I'm intrigued about is how will they win this game? Will they win the game comfortably? Will they struggle? Because Herbert had 356 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. Can he improve? Can he throw more touchdowns? That's what I want to say. I want to see more fluidity in this Chargers offense and defense, because they're a hell of a team. Doesn't matter who I support, they are a hell of a team. And they should be looking at this division, the AFC West, and thinking, this is our division, lads. Because
what I would say
honestly, if they play it out, it is.
Oh, sorry, Michael, didn't mean to cut across you. What I would say about the Chargers team is, like, last year when they were losing games by close scores, people said, we need to see that Chargers team that can go out and win games and close out games. And we saw that last week against Philadelphia, and I suppose we saw that against the Browns. But wouldn't it be nice for a Chargers fan to watch a game where they actually go and beat a team convincingly? Because you have to do that as well. You can't keep winning these close games, because 9 times out of 10, there's going to be one where you slip up and it'll cost you a big opportunity come playoff time. They should go out tomorrow and put a marker down for this division and say, look, we're the team that we believe we're the best team in this division, and go out and hose this Vikings team. They're so erratic, it's unbelievable. Zimmer
Absolutely.
won't be there for me next year. If he is, they're cheating the fans because they need to make changes. It's not working.
Mark is going with the Chargers. Mark is
Full
also
house every game.
Well.
Oh, no,
Mark's
sorry,
going
the
with the
Browns,
Eagles
no.
here now.
The Browns,
Mark's going with the
Steelers.
Eagles against the
Oh, is
Broncos.
he? Okay.
He is. He's going with the Eagles. Eagles. They weren't that far off last week against that Chargers team. Still got beat, sitting 3-6. Going to the Broncos. Broncos in a COVID hotspot at the minute. Pat Shurmur is expected to miss the game in terms of protocols. And going by the way that this team handles COVID protocols, who knows by the time the game's starting who will be out and who will be starting at certain positions. It wouldn't surprise me. That being said, I hope everyone's doing well, everyone's safe. But when you are being sent as a season ticket holder an email to wear a mask, you know there's something seriously wrong going on in Denver or Colorado in general at the minute. But the Broncos column last week, unbelievable against the Cowboys. I sat here and said the Cowboys were going to win by 40. Do you think that they've turned it around, or are you pessimistic ahead of this game against Nick Sirianni's Eagles team?
I think that the Broncos took every advantage that came their way against the Cowboys team that were cocky last week. As soon as Dak was announced as starter, the Cowboys thought, we're going to win this easy, and especially going for it on the 2 4th downs so early on and not coming up empty both times gave the Broncos, an enormous boost. And from there, they built on that, and just everything went wrong for the Cowboys. But the Broncos played very well, you'd have to say, and Jonathan Cooper in particular was really good in the pass rush. What I will say is I think that whoever loses this game tomorrow, right, no matter what happens, the losing QB will take the blame, because Broncos country it doesn't like Teddy Bridgewater, and a lot of the Eagles fans have no time for Jalen Hurts. So even if it's not on them, I think they will take the blame for it, particularly in the media as well. The other thing that I suppose is interesting around this is both of these teams have completely different defensive approaches. The Eagles are happy to give up short stuff, allow you to make completions. They don't want to give up the big plays. They don't do a whole lot of disguises. The Broncos are completely different. The Broncos look to disguise everything, which really worked against the Cowboys last week. Justin Simmons was outstanding. And that's going to be fascinating to see how those two match up. The Eagles have finally discovered running the ball. I keep saying it, but they ran the ball 5 times against the Cowboys earlier this season. 5 times. They've suddenly woken up to it. The Broncos, for the first time, properly utilized Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams last weekend. I'm interested to see, can they do that again? The Eagles allowed Justin Herbert to essentially do what he wanted last week. Will that be the same with Teddy Bridgewater? The only thing I suppose that will also be interesting, the other side of things, is the Eagles are unreal if they get into the red zone. They're third best team in the league if they get into the red zone. So the Broncos can't allow that to happen too frequently. Look, if the Broncos beat the Cowboys last week and lose to the Eagles, then it was a pointless victory over the Cowboys. It really meant nothing. This should be a game. The Broncos are at home. Obviously, there were COVID issues in Colorado, and the Broncos are missing a number of players. But it should be a game where the Broncos build on what was the standout performance from Vic Fangio's tenure thus far, and they beat the Eagles. It's going to be close no matter who wins it. I'm going to go toss a coin. The Broncos should win it and go to 6-4. And the Broncos should, if they sit 6-4 going into the bye, make the playoffs.
2 weeks ago, the season was over. We were in rebuild. Von Miller's gone. Other players could go before the deadline. 2 weeks later, potentially to go 6-4, an opportunity to be well within the crazy line of AFC teams that are looking to get a wild card. bizarre. But I said at the time I didn't agree with the trade. I didn't understand why they were doing it. I know at the end of the season, Von Miller could walk away, but sometimes you've got to let players walk away for the good of the team. But this Eagles team, 71% of their plays in the last 2 games has been run orientated. That to me just shows they just don't trust Hurts. And while he plays well, reasonably well, they don't trust him in the long run. We touched on it earlier in the week when we were having conversations around whether it's Sirianni that's holding him back or whether it's Hurts just isn't good enough to be in the NFL. It's a bit of a mix and match opinion in terms of what people were saying. But that's the conversation we had with Conor Rogers, who came on our show on Thursday night. But for me, this Broncos defense is really good and really strong. And for all the frailties that we discussed earlier in the season, players not showing up, they're still only giving up 18 or less points in 6 games. I don't see a situation where Hurts can go and beat this Broncos defense. Whatever about Bridgewater being good enough to win the game is probably another conversation. But Bridgewater's completion rate is quite high. And if you look at the Eagles off defense, touched on it on Monday's show, they don't change. They let teams go up and down the field on them. There's no in-game management. They don't even have time, and the defense quarter makes changes. They just basically, this is the scheme. We work off it. If we stop them, we stop them. If we don't, we don't. Anyway, I was going to say, I said in the past with Denver, more like Liverpool fans, they went on for 20-odd years, like they should have won the league every year. But anyway, we move on. For me, the Broncos should win this game, and I hope the Broncos win this game because I don't have much love for the Eagles.
Let's not have personal hatred towards teams here.
Okay,
Right.
I think 9 times out of 10, the Broncos at home in Mile High should win this game. The only concern I actually have was I touched on it in our private group earlier today. Mike Shula is the offensive coordinator. I haven't experienced him with the Giants and have 2 years of experience with Pat Shurmur. He concerns me because when he was in Carolina, he wasn't a fantastic coordinator. He wasn't then expected with the Giants, and now he's stepping in tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what playbook he's handed for this game. Did he go very conservative, or did they try expose this? And they should expose. Having gone to Dallas last week and put up 40-odd points, there's no reason why they shouldn't be putting that up against this Eagles defense, because this Eagles defense is bad.
Private group. It's the first I've heard of that. Must have a look at that after the show. Look, there are many things I can say here.
Group.
I know, I'm joking. There are many things I can say here. I'm going to try and keep it to a 1 minute maximum. The Broncos should beat the Eagles. The Broncos have the talent to beat the Eagles. The Broncos at the start of the season had no excuses. Big fans, you had to get to the playoffs. Yada, 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 yada. However, there is a pessimist in me that says I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, have some breakfast, mark some books for my job. By about 7 a.m. Mike Kliz is going to tweet out and say that a couple of players have tested positive. And I just got a really, really bad feeling ahead of this game. Because this year we know the rules. If you don't play, you forfeit the game. There's no ball this year. There's no movements. What happened last year was a disgrace because teams weren't treated equally. That's a different conversation for a different time. But I just have a bad feeling about this game. The Eagles, now I'm not a trained coach. Here is how you beat the Broncos tomorrow. You run the ball consistently, maybe 70% of the time. You use play action when you don't. You take your field goals. You do not go for it in 4th down. Take your field goals. Even if you're on a 2nd down at the 40-yard line for the Broncos, you take your field goals. And you utilize the 1st and 2nd down opportunities, and you utilize the punts that the Broncos have because they'll have a good few punts. The 1st and 2nd quarter in this game is so key. If the Eagles are in it at halftime, they have a chance, big time. The Broncos will win by a field goal.
You'll take it. You take it.
Of course, I'll take it. But somebody we said in the last game, you have to win. Like you're talking about the Chargers, you want to see a team start to win convincingly. There are no excuses anymore. But this is like playing Monopoly with Vic Fangio, and he's been given a get out of jail free card because 2 weeks ago everybody was damn right to think what they thought. It was a joke.
What I would say as well, if you look at the Eagles' results, right, everybody goes, oh, they're in this game, they were close. Look at the score at the end of the game. You actually look at where the score was leading into the 4th quarter of all those games. The games were over. In Oakland, at home to the Bucs, they were out of those games, and they got late garbage touchdowns, and everybody goes, oh, look at Hurt's stats, aren't they fantastic? He threw 2 touchdowns. He's thrown them in the last 4 or 5 minutes of each game, and the game is effectively over. The Broncos should be winning this game comfortably.
That's the big that's the big word there, should be. And were they playing on the pier in Oakland or where were they playing?
The game's in Vegas.
I'm so sorry. You said Oakland. I'm really sorry. I had to do it.
Apologies. Sorry. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, okay.
As I said there, Marcus was saying about the Eagles. He's picking the Packers in this game.
He picked the Eagles, bearing in mind how negative he's been about Jalen Hurts in particular.
I think he hits the Broncos. He hits us. Maybe
I
that's
don't
why
think he
he's
hates you guys, but he might hate the Broncos.
I'm only joking, Mark. Get back on here soon, man. Missing Mark tonight and all his ABBA cliches, etc. I could really do one right now. Broncos for me. Anyway, hell of a game. I want to give a shout out first off to the UK and Irish Packers that are heading over to the States for the first time in 2 years. They might not like my pick in a couple of minutes.
True,
but, yes. And you know what? Not just to them, but to everybody heading over from Ireland, UK, whatever. Especially, I think this is like the first big weekend. Enjoy yourselves if you're over and you're watching us now somewhere. How's it going? Intriguing game. Russell Wilson reborn against the COVID destroyer, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback in Lambeau Field, Colin. Hell of a game. Big game. Who wins it and why?
The Packers win it because Aaron Rodgers is back. Russ is back.
COVID, though. He's had COVID, and we don't know what the symptoms were or anything. So
did you see it? Did you not see the interview? He was grand. He'll be fine. Russ's injury is far more serious. How fit can Russ be? Russ was cooking before the injury. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was playing phenomenally well. But they're going up against a Packers defense that's 7th against the pass. And even though the Seahawks have improved, and as Pete Carroll tends to do, the defense improves as the season goes on. I just think that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are going to have enough. We know that Aaron Rodgers is capable of being brilliant. We know Aaron Rodgers loves the spotlight. All eyes are going to be on Lambeau Field tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers is going to get a win. Score-wise, I have no idea, but I do think that the Packers are going to go to 8-2.
When Wilson was playing, they were averaging 28 points a game. Whatever about the defense, the offense was playing very well, and they were losing games because the defense was so erratic. But it's similar to last season in many ways. They were so poor to start. The difference last year is their record wasn't reflective of where they are now. They're struggling. This is a must game. I mean, if they lose this game 3-6, going in next week at home to the Cardinals, with Kyler Murray potentially coming back, it's a make or break situation, and we don't know what we're going to see out of Rodgers. I think the only symptoms we saw over the past 2 weeks from Rodgers is insanity with some of the stuff that he's come out with. The Pac-D has been so strong this year, 17 points or less in 5 games. No team has won on the road when these two have played since 2010, and I'm going to go with the breaking of the streak. I am going with the Seahawks to go in and shock the Packers and win this game and put themselves back in with a shouting chance of a wild card, because if they win this one, with the cars coming to town, and there's not a lot of sense to it. People will say to me tomorrow, why you pick Seattle? You're against Rodgers, you're against the Packers. I just have a feeling if there's games in the season where one team needs it more than the other, and Seattle need this game more than the Packers. So for me, I'm going to Seahawks. Michael hasn't returned to my screen. Oh, he's back. Who did Mark pick? The Packers?
He picked the Packers. I'm picking the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to go to Lambeau. I think Russell Wilson's going to turn it on both the rushing and the passing. And I think Pete Carroll's going to be laughing his head off tomorrow, going 4-5. And I think Aaron Rodgers is in for a bad day. We have no idea what his symptoms are of COVID, because he sat down on a seat and talked for 26 and a half minutes. He's been eating clay. Not Clay Matthews, but actual clay. I don't know what's going on there, but I've got a feeling. I had a feeling about Jacksonville last week. I could be proven wrong massively, but for Pete Carroll, he has to win this game. Seattle needs to win this game, and I think if you're Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, you need a decent game here. I don't see the Packers pulling away in this game, and I can see the Seahawks defense keeping the minute, but I can also see Russell Wilson pulling ahead in the second quarter and getting this Packers team to 7-3. That's my one big shock of the week. I'm taking Seattle against Green Bay. I hope everybody over there, especially the Irish lads and ladies, have a lovely weekend. I also apologize to Van, but I'm taking the Seahawks.
I just like to make two more points on this game. Something that hasn't been really picked up on this week. I believe Chris Carson, the running back, is going to play as well for the Seahawks. He's been out for a number of weeks, which coincided with Wilson's injury, so it's a bit of a double whammy. He's really effective. I think he will also help the game because you get to give them a balanced offense. And I'm not picking the Seahawks because I think, oh, here we go. Rodgers won't have done anything for a fortnight. He's been in protocol, blah blah blah. It's more so like we've seen players come out, last weekend players didn't train all week to come out and have a great performance on the Sunday. It's just more so, I think, the situation, where the season is, where the hopes are, I think Seattle really need this more than the Pack, and that's why I'm going with Seattle.
Okay. Before we look at Sunday Night Football, let's look at the betting element of it. Now, Brian, obviously, the Irish NFL show presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. Thank you very much to Matchbook for their continued support of the Irish NFL show. How did the bet get on last week? Obviously, Matchbook gave us a few yo-yos to play around with.
I hope people aren't following our bets anymore because the last few weeks have been very difficult. And I was going to hand over the reins. For some reason, it seems to be always falling on me. I was going to hand over the reins to Mark tonight, but unfortunately, Mark was unwell and couldn't be with us. So
I'm happy to place the bet if needs be. I'm happy to.
Well, I'm going to call a few teams out, and you can tell me whether you agree with me, okay? Because tonight, probably of all weeks of the season, we've had a very, cohesive agreement on most games. So I'm going to call a few out. I'm going to where I feel we can stick them in. So I'm going to put in the Bucs to beat Washington. Yeah. I'm going to put in the Titans to beat the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to put in the Colts to beat the Jags, Steelers to beat the Lions, and I think at 5 teams, that's more than enough. The last one being the Cardinals to beat the Panthers. Cardinals, Steelers, Colts, Titans, Bucs. 5-team accumulator, paying around 3-1. And I think Monday morning we should be back in the good books.
So what you're saying is you're going to get me, you're going to send me money for a coffee on Monday morning is what you're saying, yeah? That's the plan.
If I had your money, I'd burn me own, Michael.
Okay. Well, looking at Matchbook, we're starting to show some videos from Sully and also from Daniel Hussey in regards to Super Bowl outrights. You can currently bet on Super Bowl outrights at the minute. In terms of the outrights at the minute, the Bucs are the favorites. Bills second, Rams third, Cardinals fourth. All the odds are on Matchbook.com. In terms of this week, lads, Brian, we'll start with you. The handicap for the Bills Jets game is minus 13 for the Bills. Do you think that is good value, or what's your thoughts on the handicaps this week?
I think the handicap on that game in particular, I think is a very tricky one to call, because I could see a situation where the Bills could be up and they could be letting the foot off the gas and the Jets get a few late scores. For me, if you're asking me where I go this week in terms of where picking a handicap, I think the Bucs at minus 9.5 points against Washington. So we're asking the Bucs to win by 10 or more. I think that's a fair price. Fair price in terms of reflection of the line. I think that's one that I'd be jumping all over in terms of that was my call of the week or pick of the week or individual, whatever way you want to call it, Michael. That's for me is the Bucs to cover that 9.5 points.
Colin, I know you're not a betting man, but the Broncos are favored to win. -2 is a handicap. I know you've picked the Broncos to win. Could you see the Broncos winning? By more than 2 points?
Yeah, because it'll probably be 3 in a Brandon McManus field goal.
There you go. It's even money at the minute on Matchbook.
Michael, interesting. I picked up on when you were talking about the game. You said that the scenario in LA would be that the Chargers will win by 2 points, and the Vikings will drive down and miss a field goal because that's typical Vikings. Well, the line is 2.5. So again, similar scenario. We need Chargers to win by 3. Interesting one to think that someone out there might back the Vikings plus 2.5 because it's such a tight game and potentially could go either way.
The one for me this week is the Colts Jaguars game. The handicap, is -10 for the Colts. That will happen as far as I'm concerned. I can see the Colts winning by 10 to 14 points. And that's all I'm going to say. I'd like to thank Matchbook. And I know Brian and Colin will also add to that. But a huge thanks to Matchbook for their continued support. We're getting there to the Super Bowl. boys. And
I
it's
love
really
that
crack.
you basically have to get out the crayons to explain this to me.
I
Don't
think
worry.
by week 10 you have an idea of what a handicap is, yeah?
No. By the time he gets off that flight to LA, having sat with me for 10 hours, don't worry. I'll have explained it all to him. He'll be doing all the
Well,
lingo and everything he will.
if you're like me and like before week 1 I wasn't sure what the exchange was, go online, go on the Matchbooks YouTube. There's loads of videos explaining it. If you think the Chiefs have a chance tomorrow night in Sunday Night Football against the Raiders, you can go on and set your own odds, and if somebody matches it, you can get it. So it's up to you. Thanks again, the Matchbook. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I imagine I might be doing a DB Cooper impersonation if I have to talk to Brian for 10 hours about betting. There might be some listeners who will understand that reference.
A live podcast on a plane. We're going to come to Sunday Night Football. Handicap line, Raiders plus 2.5 points. Not favourites. Chiefs favourites by 2.5 points. I was slightly surprised, Brendan, when how poorly the Chiefs have been playing.
Okay, and we'll see what happens. You can see the link in the tweet for all the odds on Matchbook, matchbook.com. Check out the American football section, and we're hopefully going to try and persuade Sully to get an MVP market on next week.
Yeah.
Okay, Sunday Night Football on NBC. God, I have to go to work in the morning.
Who's Mark going for?
Oh, I don't think he gave me a pick. Hold on. He didn't pick Sunday Night Football.
Mark,
I'm just gonna.
if you are watching,
It'll go out on our Sunday slot where we put out all the picks.
I'm thinking about Mark Hogan's picks here. I mean, if Mark's trying to make the graphic, does he have a thing for no pick for Sunday Night Football for Mark? I don't know. Anyway, Chiefs 5-4, Raiders 5-3. Start us off, Colin. This is intriguing to say the least.
Yeah, the AFC West battle. To me, I suppose this is, well, what are the Chiefs, right? Because I talked them up massively before the season, but they have, they sit at 5-4, and you are what your record says you are, but they found a way to beat the Giants. But against the Packers, they had everything go their way last week. They're going up against a QB making his league debut. They decide to sit his mother and his girlfriend somewhere in outer space. Did Elon Musk give them the rocket to where they decided to put them? And yet, Patrick Mahomes is only sacked once, right? But everything felt like a struggle. He tried throwing at Tyreek Hill 11 times. They connected 4 times. That's his main outlet. That's the big play, and the teams have taken that away. They've used the 2 cover shell. They've dared Mahomes to beat them by taking stuff underneath, and Mahomes hasn't been patient enough. And he keeps saying this week that he is going to keep taking shots. Well, he's got to connect on them. We know he's capable of it, but it's an interesting one to say the least. The Raiders were flat last week, given everything that was going on. That wasn't a huge surprise, but the Raiders were playing the Chiefs really well, even when the Chiefs were flying over the past couple of years, and they played the pass really well so far this season. A lot of that comes from their pass rush being so effective. Max Crosby has been absolutely outstanding. But I think this is a really tough game, right? Because I just said about what most teams have done is they've adapted, and they've gone the 2 cover shell against Mahomes, and they've said, right, you're going to have to take the underneath stuff. We're not going to allow you to go deep. We're going to take, as Jeff was saying, we're going to take Hill out of the game. But the Raiders, it's all single high, okay? 80% of their snaps, single high. If they don't adapt, then Mahomes could be where Mahomes has a field day and they get back into it. I think this is a really tough game to play or to pick. I really do. I can see ways that both sides win. I'm going to say the Raiders don't change what they're doing, and as a result, the Chiefs get the win, but I keep saying the Chiefs are gonna find a way or gonna win. This one, yeah, I'm saying it, but I'm not sure how much I believe it.
I'm not concerned with this game at all. At all. I've the Chiefs. No, not for me. I've watched them the last 2 weeks. People keep saying they're going to get it together. They're going to get it together because it's the Chiefs. But there's no science behind it anymore. There's no, I know we're saying Mahomes hasn't been sacked. He's been sacked the odd time. 13 points they put up in the game last week. 0 points in the second half. The Monday prior to that against the Giants, 6 points in the second half. Both defenses played well, in fairness. Both defenses schemed against Mahomes. And people say, but the Raiders' defense is a bit erratic. Same time, all the blitz this season, 25% of their blitzes, they've got to the quarterback. So I actually think Mahomes will struggle tomorrow night. And they're still going up against a team that's averaged 31 points a game. I said last week that I felt the Giants would win because with all the concern, I didn't think our defense would play well, but with all the concern, with the rogue stuff, it was similar enough to when they were flat after they grew and stuff, and they lost at home to the Bears. The following week, they rebounded in Denver and won very well and put up a good score on the Broncos defense. And I think they won't have any trouble against this Chiefs defense that has played reasonably well the past 2 weeks, but get hold of a good offense and they'll expose them again. I think the Raiders will win comfortably in this game tomorrow night. I don't see it being close. I think we're going to a situation where people are just going to have to start moving on from the Chiefs, and I'll probably be completely wrong come Monday night show. For me, the Raiders rebound, they win well, and it's a big one within the division.
Yeah, look,
I've fallen out of love with the Chiefs because I'm tired of it'll get done, it'll get right, it'll come around again.
I get hounded on the 8th of February for saying Mahomes was nowhere near good enough in the Super Bowl. It was always, it was somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault when you're playing against the Chiefs. Always somebody else's fault. Mahomes hasn't been good enough this season so far. He looks lost. He looks like a lad that has been watching too many TikToks with his sister and his brother, his wife and his brother. But look, let's talk to the let's talk about the football here. The reality is Kansas City should go into Vegas on Sunday Night Football and run the ball as much as Mahomes throws it. That's not going to happen because they've got Patty Mahomes. Patty Mahomes will probably have 35, 40 pass attempts on Sunday Night Football, and that will be their downfall. I think the Raiders will have the Chiefs number early on. I think they'll guess everything. I think the strategy from Eric Bieniemy this season has been woeful, to say the least. And I think with the DC and Vegas and the fact that the Raiders will defend the pass well, I think this could be over early. I can see the Raiders winning by 10, 14 points against a lackluster Chiefs offense. This Chiefs team is non-special, and maybe they'll turn it around. I don't think they'll turn it around this season. And I think, when you see certain people on social media, great lads, good lads and lassies, Chiefs fans that are panicking, I think they know what's happening. I think they know what's coming. This is why I was saying a minute ago about how important it was for the Chargers to beat the Vikings on Sunday, because the Chiefs are going to lose against the Raiders. The Raiders are going to move to 6-3, and the Chiefs are nowhere near good enough when you have a quarterback that just wants to hit and hope half the time. And clearly, as far as I'm concerned, against the Giants, a couple of plays looked like he was making it up in the spot. So for me, they should have got beat last week against the Packers. They should have got beat against the Giants. They're going to lose against a team that got beat by the Giants last week. They're going to lose against the Raiders. And the Chiefs are going to go 5-5. And it's amazing, Brian, how much we can all be in harmony a week that the Giants don't play.
I think it's a fork in the road game for this division. If there's a scenario, is there a scenario in play here where everybody could be on the same record?
There's a scenario in play here where the Chiefs could be fourth in the AFC West tomorrow even. Yeah,
I think it's one of those situations where the Raiders will recognize if we win this, we put 2 games. Because I think no matter what we say about the Chiefs, everybody benchmarks themselves in this division against the Chiefs. So if the Raiders win this game tomorrow, and I know the Chargers are up there completing, but they'll still say, right, we're 2 games ahead of the Chiefs, because everybody at some stage expects the Chiefs to come with a run. And it'll be a similar scenario as well with the Broncos. If they win and the Chiefs the Chiefs finished. They're ahead of the Chiefs by a game. Sorry, the Chiefs finished by not winning this game. And then God knows what happens in LA with the other game. I still expect Chargers to win. It makes the division really competitive. It's a crunch weekend for me in this division. We'll see next week where we go from here. But for me, for having watched the Raiders last week, they were flat. They were disappointing. I felt a lot of it was down to the rug. I think they'll rebound. And bearing in mind, as Colin said it, even when the Chiefs were really successful, the Raiders always put it up to them. Last year, they won with a Kelsey last second touchdown in Vegas, and the previous game, the Raiders went in there and beat them in Arrowhead. So it's not against the realms of possibility tomorrow we see the Raiders go out and give them a good going over.
A good going over. That's it. Week 10. Any final points, Colin?
I think that there are just some really intriguing games. I'm fascinated to see how obviously that Patriots-Browns game plays out. Packers, Seahawks, and Chiefs-Raiders. I have no doubt that we will see, just incredible. Like, look at last week, right? We did this show last week, and then by the time 24 hours later rolled around, there were a host of shocks. I wonder what we're going to be talking about on Monday night.
The Rams 49ers.
Well, that's going to be a good game on Monday night, especially with the OBJ stuff. But this is probably the first week, I'd imagine, if you look through all the games where we've been very consistent across a number of picks. Those games that you touched on there, Colin, where it's a bit touch and go. The Raiders game, the Browns, Patriots games. But by and large, we've gone for the same team in a lot of games. But I think the reality of that is come tomorrow night or come Monday evening when we're starting off our Monday show, somewhere somebody has caused a shock that we didn't expect to come. Again, it makes for a great weekend of action.
Yeah, and the Raiders are slight underdogs against the Chiefs. Should have said that. You can check out our partners, Matchbook, £15, 15-year welcome offer. Code is Irish NFL Show. All the T's and C's that are 18 plus. Please only spend what you can afford. We're back at 9:45 on Monday after the Northern Ireland game. We're playing Italy on Monday night. So, see you after then. I know, Brian, you'll all be watching, boys. And hopefully everyone enjoys their Week 10. I want to thank everybody for their support. Thank Trust. Thank Matchbook for the support. It's been good crack, boys. Hope you enjoy Week 10. And see you Monday night.
See you Monday.
Thank you.
Good night. God bless.
So we leave it there, so okie doke. Good night and God bless.